Thanks, Dr. Mehta, for taking the time to chat with me. Speaking of constantly looking at the screen and watching videos over and over again, screen time for teens has become significantly because of social media purposes and also educational purposes now that we all have to stay at home. And I was wondering, how do you think this impacts teens right now?
Yes, that's another really good question. And, this is a real struggle right now, not just for teens, but also for adults. If you have parents, you know, right? A lot of them are also working from home, so they're exposed to to screens for work. Some of them are also helping their teens with school, so they're having to look at their Zoom calls for whatever reason, and their social media. So I think in terms of the impact, that's a great question, because I think we need to understand, why are we even talking about limiting screen time or using it effectively? So screen time, especially, we were talking about using it right before bed. You may already know this and tell me this is a surprise to you or not, but the blue light emission from the phone screens, it's known to actually suppress melatonin, which is this natural sleep hormone. So it suppresses melatonin, which is why then teens can't sleep on time, and then if they're awake, then again they want to consume more news, and it's kind of this vicious cycle. So definitely sleep is a big impact that too much screen time or late screen time can have. And I know that there are some parents who use parental controls for younger children, but for teens, after a certain age, that may not be as effective. And teens are pretty sneaky, teens are pretty creative, they know about technology way more than their parents do, right? So they know their hacks. So it's kind of interesting too, because this whole thing about parental controls, while it's helpful for younger kids, for teens, it's one of those skills like self-regulation, or being able to have self-control. That's a really important skill that a lot of teens need to develop just as part of their development. It's a helpful tool to have. So certainly keeping that in mind, that, okay, I wanted to just use my screen time for 30 minutes, even if it's, right before you go to bed, at least be disciplined about turning it off. Maybe set your own screen time alarms. You can do that on all of these iPhones now. So sleep is one big impact. And the other thing about teens who might stay up late texting, they might not be getting that deep REM sleep, which is super important for us to store information and to create memories. In fact, there was a lot of research to show that taking naps, especially say the day before you have an exam, is actually really helpful, because if you take naps, you can kind of consolidate all of that information you've learned. So it helps with memory and learning. And then, the more the screen time, in most cases, you're getting less physical activity. So, unless you're at the gym, which nowadays, again, it's probably not possible, but sometimes you see people on a treadmill and they're consuming TV, or they're on their phone or something. But typically when you're consuming any kind of information on screen time, means less movement, less exercise. So again, that can really have an adverse impact on your mood, on your concentration, attention. And the biggest thing that, I think that screens might be interfering with is the ability for teenagers to engage in creativity or imagination. In fact, I don't know if this, again, I'm curious if this is a surprise to you, but how people say, oh, I'm bored, or I don't have much to do right now. Those are actually helpful moments in life, because when you're bored, that's actually giving your brain the space to really think creatively. It allows you to think outside the box sometimes. But when we're constantly taking in information through screens, you're not giving your brain that space to even feel bored. So definitely, I think creativity, imagination, these are all things that need to thrive in a teenager's mind. And we can only do that when we take a break from some screen time.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta.